I'm Andy Erwin, and this is The Storytellers. In this episode of The Storytellers, we have one of the people that is invested in our brand from the beginning. This woman is one of the heroes of our space that I feel has the anger and the kind of the passion to stand for what she believes, and has been on not one but two massively popular shows that are in syndication. You know her from shows like Everybody Loves Raymond and The Middle. Has had an incredible career and continues to do really entertaining things. Would you welcome one of the queens of comedy, Patricia Heaton?
Hi, Andy.
Patty, welcome. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks.
The secret to this show is I'm not interesting at all, but I've got a lot of interesting friends. So you're here to make me look good.
Okay, I'll try.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's a big request, but I'll try.
Yeah. Okay. That takes a lot of work. So you guys are in Nashville now. How's Nashville treating you? Is it
Loving it.
Yeah.
I think the testament to what a great town Nashville is that Dave and I have been here sort of on and off for 3 years. So we've spent chunks of time away from Nashville.
Yep.
And even so, when we had our Boxing Day party, the day after Christmas, which unfortunately your family
Which I
got
still don't
sick.
understand what that holiday is, but I looked it up. I was like, I still don't understand it.
Okay.
But,
We knew 100 people to invite.
wow.
So, and I think that's a testament to the friendliness of Nashville, that we feel that close to 100 people, having only spent, a few months here over the last 3 years.
Yeah, the thing that's been fascinating with this town is when we first moved here about 5 years ago, like there was very few film people here.
Yeah.
There was a few, but they were like big name people that kept to themselves, like the, Nicole Kidmans and the Justin Timberlakes.
Yes.
But in the past 5 years, like all the people, especially that are like-minded like us, have kind of all descended on this town. And they really don't know why they're here. You keep running into it like, I moved here. I don't know why, but I'm here.
Well, it's like that Stephen King novel, The Stand.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're all gathering in Colorado.
Yeah.
And all the evil people are in Vegas and
Yeah.
a war is about to happen. No. But there is this gathering that's happening here. And it hasn't quite gelled yet. We need to get the movie business happening here.
Yeah.
Like filming here much more.
That would be.
There's a few things, but we'd like to get some TV and film going here so we can all just go back to our houses at night.
That would be fantastic. I mean, we're lobbying for it for sure.
Yeah.
For you and I mean, we go back to, Mom's Night Out, it's almost 10 years ago.
Is it?
Yeah, it's been a while. And the thing that I love about you is I don't know if I ever let you know when we were doing that, like you intimidated me a little bit up front. I tried to put on my poker face that wasn't very good, but like when you came into it, we were these snotty-nosed young filmmakers that had only done one movie. We'd never done a comedy. And then we have comedy legend Patty Heaton or Patricia Heaton on set. And, the thing that I, in that journey that I discovered about you is there's this kind of tale of two Heatons with you. It's
and what is it? Tell me the tale.
Okay. The tale of two Heatons. The first part is, and I'm contractually obligated to say this from your people, is you have two-time Emmy-winning comedy legend Patricia Heaton.
Yes.
And then
three, actually.
Three-time.
Yeah.
Three-time. Okay, I didn't look at my notes right.
No, that's
So
okay.
three-time.
The third one was for a Food Network show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's the third in there
Okay.
now. But see, okay, I'm going off old notes from Mom's Night Out.
Okay.
So, and then on the other side of you, there's this Midwestern, fiery, passion-driven Irish Catholic Patty Heaton.
Yeah.
For you, like your Midwestern roots, like grew up, your dad was a newspaper guy.
Correct.
And I still read the newspaper. I'm a big fan of the newspaper. I'm one of the few. What did those Midwestern roots do for you to kind of make you who you are?
Well, I think I still had Midwestern roots for a very long time because I didn't actually start making my living as an actor until my early 30s. So I was struggling for a long time. I think God in his mercy withheld any success from me because I wanted it too much.
Wow.
Really wanted to be famous. Really acting was the center of my life, as opposed to God being the center of my life for a long time. And so it would have been ruinous for me if I had been successful any earlier than I was. And so I felt like I was just still scrapping and fighting for all that time, so you grow up in the Midwest and everybody's very nice and normal and everybody works hard. And, as soon as I turned 16, I got a job so I could pay for stuff. And, I was very independent. And that just continued with tons of survival jobs after I went to The Ohio State University and then moved to New York City and kind of scrapped around there for 9 years and then went to LA. No agent, no manager, no car.
Wow.
And so I just think that sort of upper middle / working class combination thing stayed with me because I had to be that for so long. And so that when I would finally get on the lot at Warner Brothers, every day I felt like kissing the ground. I couldn't believe I was there. And I still appreciate it. And even though at this point, I don't have a regular job right now, and it's been a couple of years, and I've been used to working for every day for 20 years. I look back at that. Let's say that's it for me. Let's say I don't work again as an actor. I just appreciate that happened to me. It happens to so few people. And I really have an enormous amount of gratitude that I was given that. But I think it happened in the timing that it did because I was able to center God in my life. And when that happened, then I think he knew it was safe for me to start being successful and have all the things that come with that. Because those things can really corrupt you. And once God became the center of my life and I had my children, it all started happening after I got married and had children. And that becomes, it's like God, then your family, then your career. So that when the children are also there as your focus, it puts everything into perspective. Because at the end of the day, you might have spent all day where people are running around telling you how great you are and laughing at everything you do and coming by and asking you if you need any water. But when you go home, you're just changing poopy diapers and trying to, boil hot dogs and nobody's saying thank you or anything.
Most humbling thing in the world. You're like,
humbling.
Where's the applause?
Yes.
And they're like, no.
So, it really centers you and grounds you. So I think if that hadn't happened, the acting and the things that come with it especially would have been too important. And I would have been running after those things.
Well, I don't know if it's this way for you, but like being from Birmingham, Alabama, somewhere that's kind of very blue collar and mundane to a lot of the world. I think you do want it that much more, just because you want to prove that, oh, don't judge me. I'm more than what you think and you kind of crave that validation.
Yes, and I think all my life I have just, I was born performing. Like it's not something I decided to choose. Since I was little, I had a very fruitful imagination, and I lived in my imagination a lot. And I watched all these old Shirley Temple movies growing up, and I wanted to be Shirley Temple. And I would go into Sister Delrina's class in the 2nd grade, and I would say to her, I have a Barbra Streisand song I'd like to present to the class. And she would say, okay.
I'm here.
And I would do the Barbra Streisand song from the My Name is Barbara album. And then, in the class is like everybody like looking at each other. And I'm thinking like, Barbara, when I'm, 6 years old. And then she would send me to the other classrooms to sing for everybody. So that was just who I was. My friends and I growing up in Ohio I would say, here's the latest musical album that we have at our house. We always got musicals. And then everybody would learn the songs, and then we would go out and perform them on the loading dock of the grocery store that was down the street. So we did West Side Story on the loading dock of the Heinen's supermarket. And or we take a book and we play the book, right? So I was just always performing, but there was nobody around me in my family who was doing that, and no one knew how to or thought of they didn't have to encourage me, let's put it that way. I just did it.
They still don't. like you would send me jokes like on set of Moms Night Out, like with like pictures of yourself with like Krispy Kreme donuts, and I'm like, Patty, we wrapped 2 hours ago. Why are you still on?
Right, exactly.
You're so awesome.
That's right. I just had that drive in me still, and I had to keep pursuing it. And I finally got into the chorus of a black gospel musical written by the Winans.
Wow.
And it was a Broadway show.
Huh.
And I remember I had this manager. It's almost like the Woody Allen movie Broadway Danny Rose, right? Mm-hmm. But my manager was this gal, Pat Sullivan. And she kind of talked like this. She smoked a lot. And she lived in this apartment in Manhattan. And
every stereotype.
Yeah.
Yes.
She sort of wore these big muumuus. And I think she was in the original Our Gang TV shows, like the Little Rascals, you know. So she's been around for a long time. And she's like, "You go to church, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Okay, go audition for this black gospel musical." I'm like, "Well..." But okay, all right. So I went into the audition, and it's every great black singer from the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir.
Oh my gosh.
Is there auditioning.
That's hysterical.
And I was like, I didn't know any gospel songs, so I prepared a song called Suddenly Seymour from Little Shop of Horrors. And I go in this room, and there's all the Winans sitting there. And I had just come from a commercial audition for like Palmolive dishwashing liquid or something, and I couldn't have looked whiter or preppier. I was in a jean skirt and a little red sweater with a scarf, you know. And I came in and I said, "Okay, so just like pretend like this is a gospel song." I don't know, the Holy Spirit or adrenaline or a combination platter of that came in, and I mean, that song just flew out of me. You could see on their faces, like pushing their chairs back from their table, just looking at each other like, "We can't believe this is coming out of this tiny little white girl." And I got a standing ovation from them.
Wow. When
I finished. And then when I walked out, everybody, all the singers from like Brooklyn, looked at me like, "Wait, that was you? Huh. That little white girl?" And so I got the job. And so that was sort of the first big show I'd ever done. It was just like in the chorus, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really going to get me anywhere. But it was really...
But you can officially at that point say, "I'm an actor." It's
yes, and I had a show jacket. Like I had like a thing that's
legit.
Yeah.
Like, and it's really validating.
Yeah.
I think for me, I don't know if it's this way for you, but sometimes I do my best work when I'm backed into a corner.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to come out swinging.
Yes.
And it's like, this is either going to go down in flames.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the most embarrassing chapter of my life.
Yes.
Or I'm going to kill it.
Yes.
And you just kind of just say, well, carpe diem, and you just
carpe diem, and you have to be able to risk. You just have to be a risk taker.
Yep. Well, with you getting going, I mean, you go from Shirley Temple and Barbra Streisand tunes, to musical theater in a black gospel choir. Where did you kind of tap into comedy? That's something I love.
I think when I was growing up, we had shows like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and then there was the spinoff.
The Mary Tyler Moore Show is one of the most perfect pieces of television in history.
Yes.
Like every character on that was spot on.
So delicious.
And I think it did very much what you guys accomplished on Raymond. Is Mary was so adept at earning the laugh with this really character-based humor to really kind of get it to where you're crying, you're laughing so hard, like Chuckles the Clown.
Yes.
Moments where it's just like, and then she would take a hard right turn to something that was profound
Yeah, and
would
emotional.
really move you.
Yeah.
And then she would keep it from being earnest by then taking another hard left turn back to something
Yes.
hysterical.
Yes.
And like there was something so brilliant and like dramatic about how they accomplished their comedy.
Yes. And I think that, so I was always drawn to comedy growing up, and we watched a lot of television. There's a story that Phil Rosenthal tells that he would be sitting in front of the television all day long, and his mother would say to him, "How are you ever going to get a job if all you ever do is watch TV?" And he actually has a picture of himself as a little kid. By the way, he looked exactly the same when he was 5 as he does now.
Yeah.
Holding a TV guide and watching TV.
Oh my God.
And makes his living at TV. And so I think I was drawn to that, and I recognized the humor. I think our family was just kind of funny. My brother was really funny. And in my acting class, I remember the Meisner technique, you do a lot of improv.
Sure.
And often the improvs would turn toward comedy just because that's what my instincts were.
Yeah.
So I think really, and Eileen Heisler, who's one of the creators of The Middle, she and I talked about this, that you can't really learn comedy.
Yeah.
Like you're either funny
It's instinctual.
or you ain't.
Yeah.
And I've seen movies where they've cast actors who are normally dramatic actors, and they give them funny lines, but it's just not funny.
Yeah.
But there are people who come onto the set and they don't have to even open their mouth, and they make you laugh, like Will Ferrell.
Yeah. Well, I found that, like, I think a lot of times comedy actors, because they're so present and they work at such a high RPM because of the improv and all that. And to do improv, you have to be very present and you're very paying attention to what the other person's doing and responding. And so that you can't just mail it in. I think that a lot of times comedic actors make a better turn towards drama than the other way around.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I'll tell you what, for me, comedy is super specific, and it's kind of a type of music. And when you're doing a comedy show, the really good writers don't want you to divert from the script. They've crafted this very carefully to follow this music where the joke will only work if you hit it at this point, at this whatever. And what dramatic actors are very good at is being loose and open and coming in and not really knowing what they're going to do or what's going to happen. And that's a little scary to me. I tend to want to have all my ducks in a row and kind of know where it's going.
Yeah.
So for me, starting to do a little more feature films, smaller parts in feature films recently, that's been my challenge to myself is just shake it off and try to be just really present in the moment and see what hits me. With Raymond, we had, 4 or 5 days of rehearsal, and you knew where those laughs were going to come.
Yep.
And you hit a certain beat, and it was very prepared.
Yeah.
Not that comedians don't do improvisation, and we would do sometimes second and third takes where you would throw in a different joke on Raymond, or you try something different on The Middle. But for the most part, it was pretty prescribed. So, my challenge now is being really loose. I was listening to Tom Holland talk about acting, and he said, I don't memorize my lines. He said, this is what he said. There's 3 things you're doing in dialogue. You're either asking a question, answering a question, or telling a story.
Huh.
He said, if it's asking and answering questions, I don't even look at my lines till I'm in the makeup chair.
Wow.
He said, if I have a story that I'm telling, then I'll
Learn
memorize
dialogue,
it a little bit. But first of all, I just thought, these young people with their fresh, moist brains.
And you're like, say that again. Write that down.
Where's my sides? Wait, let me get my glasses here. Wait, I'm just going to tuck my sides.
The kiddos these days.
Did you just put my lines on a card? I know. And I was like, that's, a privilege of the youth. But I thought that is so not me. I like to have my lines all down. And then if you know them well enough, then you can kind of fly off of them and play with them.
Right.
So, I mean, the beauty of being in this really difficult, often awful business that's constantly disappointing you and humiliating you
Yep.
is that you never stop learning. there's always something you could be learning about your craft. It doesn't end.
Yeah.
And that keeps you going, and that's what makes life exciting. As you said before, you got to just go out and risk, and sometimes you're going to fail, and sometimes you're going to succeed, but you'll never succeed unless you risk. And so I think that's what keeps a lot of actors young in spirit, really, because you're having to always be in a state of being ready to learn. And that's almost like a childlike state of being, is being open to experiences and open to learning.
Yeah.
You know, because I when I'm around actors, I'm like, well, actors are just so, well, what we do is we play. It's playing.
Well, I mean, like, I love, every time I would step on the set with John Voight, he would always rib me, and he'd kind of elbow me in the ribs and be like, "Hey kid, do you see what we get to do for a living?
I know.
We're gonna go play dress up for 2 hours. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it." And he'd just walk out, and it's like he was doing vaudeville. And I'm like, how, he's 80 years old, and he hasn't lost that spark.
He in particular has a very youthful spirit.
Does.
And he always comes in from some obtuse angle that you don't expect, even when just in regular conversation.
Oh, just hanging out with him. I took him to. He's like, "Hey kid, next time you're in LA, I'm going to take you to my favorite restaurant." It's I'm like, all right, John, that's great. He's like, "Okay, you call me," and then I call him. I get out there. He's like, "It's this Greek restaurant," and I think he's going to take me to some fancy Greek restaurant.
Yeah.
And then I show up, and it's in like the
a hole in the wall in a
Century
strip
City
mall.
Mall, like it like tucked in the. And he goes there all the time. He just sits there at the table, and he's sitting there, and he's holding court with everybody in there,
Yes.
doing his routine. And in the middle of it, he's like, "Hey Andy, in your movie American Underdog, you had my friend Bruce McGill in it. I love Bruce McGill. He's wonderful. We were in the movie Heat together. I haven't talked to that man, and he's a lovely man. I would love to talk to him. Do you have his number? I would love to talk to him." And I was, "Sure, John, I would love to hear." And so I text him, send him the contact info. And then he all of a sudden looks at it, dials it, he calls it, he's like, "Hey Bruce, it's John Voight. I'm prank calling you." Ha ha. It hangs up. I was like, but this is a guy that just
Yes.
he just loves to perform. He has not lost the joy.
Yes.
For that with you. So with you, I think there is something about people that discover their voice a little bit later in life, because they know what they want. They know why they're there. They know kind of what it took to get there, and they appreciate it.
Yes, and I think just one of the things that William Esper said as we graduated from the 2-year program was, okay, now you need to go out and live, because you need to have experiences from which to draw.
Yeah.
You don't have those experiences. And having children opens a chamber in your heart that is only unlocked by children. And that gives you a completely different perspective and set of emotions and a fierceness and a fear, and it just brings all this stuff, and it humbles you.
It
and
deals with every bit of selfishness.
Every bit. And so, you bring that to the table. So it's, and sometimes I feel like this is so embarrassing what we do. And it's a ridiculous job for a grown woman to have. I remember, shooting at night on the middle, and I'm tired and sitting outside. It was a Frankie ends up needing extra money for Christmas. Frankie Heck, my character on the middle, and she has to go work at the old timey village, Christmas village, and I'm standing there with a bonnet in this old timey dress and a butter churner.
It's such a good episode.
Yeah. And so I was just like, this is embarrassing. It's kind of embarrassing that I'm in this costume, even though it's embarrassing for my character also. And I just thought, I just can't believe this is what I do for a living. And there's surgeons saving people's lives, doing brain surgery, and I'm getting paid twice as much, in my old-timey costume on the Warner Brothers lot.
But and the other side of it is like that switch you can't turn off, because I would be like, I would put in Mom's Night Out, I put you in embarrassing situations, and I would always check on you, be like, "Hey, are we pushing it too far? Are you okay?" And then you leaned over, you said, "Andy, let's get one thing straight. I will do anything for a laugh." Like literally anything for a laugh.
I know. It's so true. It's so true. Well, I remember, and this has been interesting because when we were on set, you had already been shooting with Sarah Drew and Sean Astin. And the first day on set, you said to me, I want to show you what we shot, a little bit of what we shot already. I want to show you this scene with Sarah and Sean. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to see it.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, come on, let's look. And I said, okay, I hate to say this, but if it's terrible, I'm not going to want to do the rest of this movie.
I'm getting on a plane tomorrow.
And you were like, I think you'll like it. And I watched it. And not only did I like it, I was blown away and completely intimidated by Sarah. And I thought, oh my gosh, I really have to show up now. Not that I wasn't going to show up, but now it was like a gauntlet was thrown. Like, I have to be as funny or funnier and better than Sarah. And I told her that later. I said, I was so intimidated by what I saw you do in that closet scene.
Yeah.
You were that funny crying, because funny crying is not
difficult.
everybody can do it.
It's very difficult.
And so she was like, really? And I said, yeah, I was blown away. And I think about that because flash forward, Dave and I are producing and Dave is directing our movie Unexpected, which you can get on Amazon Prime
It's
with Anna Campbell and
fantastic.
Joe Mazzello.
Fantastic.
And I remember just trying to wrangle the actors, like to get them out of the trailer on time.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, like now I hate actors. Now I hate them. And I'm looking back at myself going, I can't believe I said that to Andy.
There are two things. There were two things that will make you a great actor. One is having children.
Yes.
The second is producing.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you produce, you want to go, well, you have children, you want to go back to your parents
Yes.
and say, everything I've ever done, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
When you produce, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You want to go back to every filmmaker that you ever worked with and be like, back when I was 30 and I said all that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I actually texted the second AD from, I can't remember if it was from the middle or what, maybe it was from the middle. And I said, because she used to come in the makeup trailer and said, are you, guys, we need you. And I'm like, it takes as long as it takes, okay?
Oh my gosh, you said that.
Yeah, a number of times. I mean, of course, sort of jokingly, but sort of not. And I either called her or texted her, and I said, I am so sorry. I said, I'm trying to get actors out of the trailer right now, and I need to apologize to you for not coming out of the trailer on time. Now, I'm actually a super professional person who is on set and shows up and knows my lines, but their job is a thankless job of having to try to wrestle everybody.
Well, when you produce, for one thing, you're accountable for the amount of money you're spending, and for especially in a situation where you're part of the it's a tremendous weight that and then everybody's job, you have to be hyper aware of what they're doing because every little piece has to work together to execute, and all of a sudden it just pulls back the curtain where you're like, oh, this job's actually pretty hard.
Yes.
It's hard to, because a movie doesn't want to get made.
Right.
Right. It's like
everything's working against it.
Everything. There's something is always on fire.
People,
something's
weather.
Always angry at you.
Yes.
And you're just having to sit there and take it.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh, okay.
Yes.
It's an interesting thing.
And the thing with the actors is what makes them good actors, vulnerable, insecure, very emotional, wearing their emotions on their sleeves, very, very sensitive and affected, also makes them terrible people to work with, like to get places and to, you just know, we just want to get this done. And they're like, I don't know. Do you think can we try it again? Can I do it this way or that way? And I'm not really complaining about our actors because they were incredible and I love them. But I just realized you have to handle actors and they are really risking. And they are trusting you. They're going to put something out there for you, and then they're hoping that you pick the take that they like, and that you're on them and during that particular shot, not cutting away to somebody else, and that the whole movie is going to work. And they have no control over those things, and they're trusting you to make it look good. And if it doesn't, they're the ones that the audience sees,
and they get blamed.
And so I appreciated more what producers do, but also really appreciated what the actors do.
Well, and I felt like he gives you, as a producer, I think early on as a filmmaker, and when we worked together in Mom's Night Out, I was terrified because I'd never done a comedy. Comedy is super hard.
Feature comedy especially.
Comedy is hard.
Yes.
It's so hard to earn the laughs, and it's hard to do. Especially what you did on Raymond and what you did on The Middle, it's hard to do clean comedy.
Yes.
because you can't just rely on like, seventh grade humor and, and crass stuff.
Right.
And that you've got to make it intelligent. You got to make it work. But it's hard and it's terrifying. But I think as a young filmmaker, the other side, you talking about being the actor in the trailer and kind of mouthing off at the ADs. Well, as a director, I think a lot of times as a director producer, when you're young, you feel like you have to control every part of your vision. You got to just rule with an iron fist. Do what I say, do this, do that. And you miss out on so much of the opportunity to discover.
Yes, discover. That's
And
a
that
good word.
as you're growing as a director, and life has a way of beating you down and really kind of developing empathy, whether you want it or not.
Yes.
There comes a point where you're like, oh, what the other person's doing is really hard too.
I remember I was that person on Mom's Night Out. There was one scene where we switched
I did it
it.
too.
Do you remember that? And I was like, Andy, you can't just switch that.
And we can both agree we're going to blame it on my brother. But yes.
Yeah. Who's not here? John?
Yeah,
Okay, it was John's
It was
fault.
John's fault.
Yes, do you remember that?
Yeah, because I think we flipped the whole schedule that day. And
It was like on the day, like right before I was supposed to do something that
It was in the jail.
Yes, it was. Before I had prepared for it, right. So, yeah. And I don't think you did anything wrong or that you didn't do it, approach it well. And you were very solicitous and, sorry about it. And it's just one of those things, that everybody's operating at a certain level of tension. I mean, even if it's a really great friendly set and everything's going well, just the performance energy, it has a tension to it. And the directing energy has a tension to it. So there's always a bit of tension. And and you're limited time-wise, and especially when the budget is low, you really got to make your day. You got to get all the shots for that day done if you want to stay under or at budget.
Yep.
So there's pressure. It's a pressure cooker.
A pressure cooker.
Even if you're all having fun and you're laughing, it's a pressure cooker.
Yep.
So
sometimes that pressure has to be relieved.
And it pops. It's like a champagne bottle, and the cork pops off, and it's got to come out a little bit. So it's just what it is.
But I remember that day. You were a pro because I came up. I told you, and you're like, "I need a minute." And then I remember you walking through the double glass doors.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around the hallway to see you walk down the hallway. And you're walking around and you're just shaking your arms going, and you're just like shaking out all this tension. And I was like, I turned to my first AD and I was like, I think I just broke Patricia Heaton. I heard a rumor that you auditioned for Seinfeld.
Yes.
As Elaine Bennis.
Yes,
right?
and got called back.
Huh.
And I knew on the callback I didn't get it.
Really?
Yeah, I could.
You just felt it?
The first audition went really well. And then the second, this is with Jerry.
Yeah.
And I could just tell it wasn't hitting. It wasn't connecting with him. And I think because Julia Dreyfus was a more sketch comedy person and a more fluid worker, like improv-y worker, actor, I think that kind of gelled with Jerry. And she was brilliant on it. I mean, and then I got Raymond. And I think, so in the moment, it's disappointing. But when you have the benefit of looking back in time, you see, oh, it was meant to be.
So you lose this opportunity that would have been one sort of career changer for you.
Yes.
And then Seinfeld blows up, and you're watching it on the air, just blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you find Deborah Barone.
Mm-hmm.
So when you step into the room for that and you audition for that, when did you know, like, oh, this is the one I was meant to have?
Did I just have Sam? I think my oldest one. And I went to this audition, and the sitter was also a college student, and she had to go to class. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be back as fast as I can. My whole motivation during that first audition was I have to get this over with so I can let the babysitter go. That was all that was in my head when I went into audition for Raymond. And also at that time, as kind of every new mom, I was always angry at Dave.
Poor Dave.
They could never do anything right or never
Dave.
do enough. And so,
Little puppy dog
Deborah was
face.
pretty mad at Ray for 9 years.
He just poured it into it.
Yes, so I didn't even have to do any research. I was living the life of an overwhelmed mom, and they wrote that very well on the show.
Oh, they did.
And
Absolutely
so,
did.
it wasn't a big hit. It started out on Friday nights, and I think our rating, we were at 134,
Mm-hmm.
and just behind Moesha, that
Wow.
show. And then Les put it on Monday night after Monday Night Football. And that's what really launched us. And they don't do that as much anymore. Streaming has come in and kind of thrown everything into chaos and confusion.
Right.
But back in the day, they would keep a show on and try to make it work, and which is what they did at CBS. And so, that Raymond was the little engine that could, and we kept chugging along, and it built up and built up and built up. And it's interesting because it always was like Friends came on at kind of the same time, and Friends just launched, and they were on the cover of everything. And Seinfeld was on the cover of everything. And we had our little show that millions and millions of people were watching, but it wasn't the hip show.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same with The Middle. When The Middle was launched, Cougar Town was also the new show, and Modern Family. And here was The Middle again, kind of chugging along. But again, we're doing really well on streaming and syndication, as Raymond is just evergreen.
Yeah, it totally is.
I have just 2 nights ago at a restaurant, a gal came up, the manager of the restaurant was just like, I just have to tell you. She goes, I didn't actually recognize you. I heard your voice, and I was like, can that be Deborah?
That's awesome.
I get this story all the time of people saying, my father was sick, and the only time we all laughed, was watching Raymond. It was his favorite show.
Man.
So, when I'm talking about like what a stupid business this is, and we're not doing brain surgery and we get paid all this money, there is something to be said for bringing joy into people's lives, because we have so much stress in our lives. And I'm glad that my small part in this lifetime is to be able to bring laughter to people. I really enjoy comedy. I mean, I'd love to do drama, but comedy is sort of a beautiful thing, because what it does is it kind of opens up your heart and relaxes you, and you literally physically oxygenates you if you're laughing. And so you're kind of open, relaxed, and enjoying it. So then that's why you talked about Mary Tyler Moore show, where something would come in that was more profound.
Yep. You'd
and
let your
then
guard
you're
down.
open to it, and it hits you more.
Yep.
And then, of course, you don't want to get maudlin, so you cut the treacle, as they say, and you give it a little kind of zhuzh at the end to bring it back to a laugh.
Yep.
But those are the moments that really are moving, because it comes upon you unexpectedly.
Well, and you guys did that so well on both shows.
Yes.
And I think the other thing about both Raymond and The Middle is it gave a voice, to people that were like us, that didn't live in New York or LA. Like there was something very Midwest, Middle America, that felt familiar with both shows, where it's like, oh, that's the way my family is. But without it being kind of a crass, pessimistic, kind of all in the family kind of feel.
Right.
It was very much like we're normal people. We love our families, and we have dysfunction, and there's things to laugh at.
Yes, I feel like it filled the gap that Roseanne had left when that show ended. Yep. And Eileen and Deanne and most of the writers are from the Midwest, and they have a love for it. And so they're able to laugh at certain elements, like having, on The Middle, the big, adventure for that week would be driving to French Lick to go to the mattress store, And so, and just there was an episode where they go on vacation and they ask their next door neighbors to just keep an eye on the house. And the neighbor goes inside, and it's such a mess that she thinks they've been robbed and ransacked. So she calls the police to come. So when the Heck family comes home, there's police at their house. And she says, I think someone came in and ransacked your house because everything was everywhere. And they have to pretend like, yeah, that's probably what happened, but that's just the way their house always looks. So it's just really stuff like that, where they can make fun of that growing up with such love and affection that it really rang true. And a lot of those stories came from the lives of the writers, which is also what happened in Raymond, which is really, what makes stuff authentic. When it's specific memories and experiences from writers, it becomes very universal and authentic for the audience.
For you, the thing that's fascinating for me is you've done two very iconic pieces of television, each that lasted like 8 or 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Won a couple of Emmys, got recognition for it. But the thing that's frustrating about this business is like, no matter how much of a time you have something that's a successful thing in this business, you can't park there forever.
Can't rest on your
You
laurels.
You can't. It just, you have your moment, then it passes. And then all of us at some point will be like, people look at us like, oh, you did that thing here and there and the thing. And
it's so hard.
So how was it on both those situations, moving on from a hit TV show that finally it's like it was time to close the door and move on? Like, what does that feel like?
You recognize with Raymond, let's say, that it was time to move because you can sort of feel like you're repeating some stories.
Yep.
They probably could have done another year if Robert and Amy had had children.
Sure.
So there would have been a few more stories to pull from that. But only the writers in the writers' room know for sure when it's done. And Ray and Phil have a lot of integrity. And they were like, we want to end on top.
Yeah.
We don't want to go 1 year longer than we should have. We don't want to stay at the
Smart.
party too long.
Smart.
So that felt like, of course, you're sad to see it go. And it's your paycheck. So, but you recognize that it was time to move on. Same with the middle. For a half-hour single camera, it takes much longer to shoot. And so also that felt like the right time to go. So it was very satisfying. It's always very sad to leave. I remember the last day of shooting the middle, I went through the whole day, did not feel one bit of emotion because we didn't have an audience to do it in front of where we said,
right.
Ta-da, that's it. It was just like, okay, we finished, all out of order. And I got into my car. And our set PA, Jeff, who greeted me every day when I came in, took my bags to my trailer, handed me my sides, and said, what do you want for breakfast? I'm in the car, leaving, and slowly pulling out. And I roll down my window, and Jeff comes over and says, this is the last time. And I just burst into tears, uncontrollable sobbing. So it does hit you. And I sobbed the whole rest of the day. I think you can look on my Instagram and see me go, but it's the right thing to do. I mean, there are some actors, Mariska Hargitay has been doing SVU for 19 years, something crazy.
Or like Grey's Anatomy.
With the Ellen Pompeo. And those are hour shows. They're really long to shoot.
Right.
I think they take 8 days to shoot as opposed to 5. So, it's hard. What I found difficult, we had I had a brief show called Carol's Second Act that only went for 1 season, and then the pandemic hit. And so, you have the pandemic and nobody's working and nobody's doing anything. But once we came out of that and we're all trying to find our way, it's in my bones, it's in my body to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go to work. Did that for 9 years on the middle. And prior to that, I was doing Raymond for 9 years and going to work every day. And so that's 20 years of working every day. To go from that to not working, I'm still figuring out how to do it. I don't know how to do it. And it's not in my nature to not have something to do. And I'm not good at self-scheduling. And because also I don't have the kids at home anymore. They're all out of the house. So I have this day and I have to kind of impose a schedule on myself, but really nothing has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this weird limbo that I've been sort of swimming through, like trying to swim through Jello of like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? What does God want me to do? Is this it? Am I supposed to say goodbye to all of that? Was that my shot? And which was very good if that's the end. I have been doing little roles in movies here and there, worked with you guys, thankfully. And so it's been difficult to know, like if I have a job to go to, then I can organize the rest of my life around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps me. It gives me this impetus. When I have just this day dawning in front of me that's wide open, I just, oh my God, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just a doer. It's very hard for me.
With the doing, one thing I've really seen in you since we've known each other the past 10 years is there has been a depth that's grown in you a lot as a person. That's so much more than just what you do in front of the camera. And I've seen it in your faith, and I've also seen it in the causes that you kind of attach to. That's like, it's that other side of the tale of two Heatons. It's the Midwestern blue collar, like I want to do something that matters.
Yes.
That has kind of an anger to it or a passion. And anger in the best sense of the word, not rage, but passion, anger. Want something that pushes you past your fear. So like, talk to me a little bit about like your faith and how it's informed the things that you've invested your life in the past, 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up in Cleveland, everybody there is really nice, and everybody helps each other all the time. Everybody's always, you help your neighbor. When when my dad passed, I remember you just come home and someone had, nobody really locks their doors, and my friend Sally had just come in and put a casserole in the fridge.
Yep.
And left, right?
Wow.
So there's that kind of thing that goes on. And then my dad, who was really nervous about money all the time, he's a newspaper guy, didn't make much, was paying school tuition for Catholic school for 5 kids. But he always, when he was paying bills once a month, was sitting at the dining room table and writing out checks to charities. And I remember that he never said a word about it, but I remember he was always anxious about money, but then he would write checks for charities. So that stuck with me. And I always saw him doing kindnesses for people. And I knew that also as a Catholic, it's really about the poor. The Catholics are very much about helping the poor. And that's why you have missions everywhere and nuns and priests all over the world doing work. And so that's always stuck with me. And I always knew that if I was in a difficult place, the best thing you could do is just look for someone else who needed something and focus on that and let God take care of the problems in your life and don't worry about it. And so I think that's been, part of it. And what was interesting about that story I told about going on that mission trip in Mexico. At that moment, I thought this was an either or request to God. Either show business or mission work.
Instead of
both and. Cut to, yes. I'm in Rwanda with World Vision. It's my 5th World Vision trip, maybe.
I saw it on your Instagram.
Yes, and I thought, oh, he gave me both on a much bigger scale than I could have ever imagined. I got a full-blown Hollywood career and a full-blown mission career with World Vision that for people who had never even heard of it, even though it's the largest NGO in the world, largest provider of clean water, no one on the set of The Middle had ever heard of World Vision. And that's when I thought, who are these World Vision people that nobody knows about them? And I called them up and I said, I think you need me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love that.
And because I think I'd been a supporter, but I was like, I think I can do more. And so I realized, oh, God is so much bigger. He thinks in such a bigger way than we do,
Right.
It's always a different path to that bigger way. That's what throws us off. It's like, wait a minute. I thought we had to do this to have it happen, but now you're telling me I'm going this direction instead. Yep. And it dawned on me that like, you don't need to strive. You need to show up and do your best work every day, but God is in charge. And there's no use trying to force something that he doesn't have for you because it's not going to work out, and that has been such a blessing to me when I realized early on that it was because the Lord was guiding my steps and carving out my path that I really didn't have to worry about stuff. And that's not to say I don't get deeply disappointed about things that don't happen that I'm really passionate about. It still hurts, but the hurt is very short-lived, and you just have this eternal perspective that God's in control, and if it's not meant to be, then He's protecting me. It's actually protection when stuff doesn't happen for you. And so it gives you such a it doesn't necessarily lessen some of the disappointment, but you get a
Perspective.
You get a yes, you do get an eternal perspective of everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And everything's meant the way.
And I think, and that's what excites me about like the next chapter.
Yeah.
For both you and Dave, because I know Dave's directing more and more, and I know how much your husband gave up because he incredible actor himself, Juilliard trained.
Yes.
And in order to make the Raymond thing work, moved
yes,
over
and to
from
be with the kids.
England.
Yes, left work in England to be home with the kids.
And now that the kids are adults, is really reconnecting with his passion as a director.
Yes.
Both of you guys are producers, which I think is where a lot of actors kind of regain their power. They're not at the mercy of the next offer or audition. It's being able to go out and create the work that you want to be a part of.
Right.
And so that's exciting. We've been tinkering around with the idea of maybe looking at a Mom's Night Out too.
Yes. Which would be really fun.
Which would be fun. That would be awesome. Get the band back together in some capacity.
Just don't put me in the parking lot of a Piggly Wiggly in Alabama in the middle of the night. That's all I ask.
Well, I remember.
Can we have a tropical location, please?
Yeah, tropical. Yeah, exactly. We're not filming this one in Birmingham. It will be somewhere like Fiji.
And then there's nothing wrong with Birmingham. It was being at 3 a.m. in the parking lot of the Piggly Wiggly.
That is incredible. Yes, I apologize. I'm glad that you're still talking to me. And then we've got Unbreakable Boy that's coming out this year.
Yes.
That you're in with Zachary Levi and Megan
Yes.
Fahey. And fantastic film.
Is it? Did it turn out well?
So good.
Oh, good. I'm very excited.
It's so good.
Okay.
It's so charming. You guys have to stay tuned for that. So it's exciting. But I think the thing that excites me about where you guys are at is I feel like you guys are so much more aware of what you're doing and doing it on purpose.
Yes.
And really wanting to invest in things that matter, whether it's World Vision or creating your own films. There's a passion, like I want to invest my life in what really matters.
Yes, and I think when you get to be older and you get more of a sense of your mortality, right, as it goes on and the kids are out of the house and people around you, or some people are starting to pass away. And so you just get this sense of like, okay, time is precious. So you really just want to do the things that are meaningful because it's so hard. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard regardless of what it is that you're doing, that it should be something that you love with people you love, and that will add something to a positive thing in people's lives in the world. That's really all we're looking for now. And it makes it easier to fight for those projects because they're the ones you really believe in and you believe will contribute
because
to the world.
Yeah, because it's the great exchange. I mean, anything as a producer or director that you invest your life in, the exchange is what you're exchanging in return is 2 years of your life.
Yes.
And so it is a painstaking process that I think as you get older, it's like, I don't just need a job. I need to tell stories that matter, that I get to work with people that I love. And that's it.
Yeah.
And if it's not somebody I want to work with that I love, or a story that I'm very fiery passionate about, then it's not worth. It's better to say no to it. And so I think, it's exciting, as we all kind of progress to get to those moments. So I think the best is yet to come for you guys.
Yes,
I'm
thank
excited
you.
about next chapters.
Yes, thank you.
As we wrap up, just a fun little thing at the end. I'm always curious about kind of instincts and inspiration. Like I think, good artists create, great artists steal. And so for you, as a 3-time Emmy winning comedy legend, Patricia Heaton, who are the ladies of comedy, like the 2 or 3 ladies that you have on your pedestal of these are the ones that I've pulled things from in my career? And, who are those, 3 individuals?
I would definitely say Mary Tyler Moore.
I could totally see that.
She's brilliant. Talk about great, funny crying. She was the queen
of
that.
She was. All the way back to like Dick Van Dyke.
Yes. And she gave me my second Emmy.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And she talked to me backstage. So it was like a triple whammy of bucket list stuff.
Oh my word.
Yes, it was such an honor. It was
surreal.
such an honor.
What did she say? Or do you remember? Were you just
Yes,
kind of in
no,
a
she
fog?
just said, I just think you are wonderful. And she went on and on. To have your icon tell
Yes.
you that you are doing a great job is, you can't believe it.
Hmm.
Speaking of her, Dick Van Dyke played my uncle on The Middle. He came
Yeah.
on for one episode. And I remember seeing him as Bert the Chimney Sweep in Mary Poppins when I was in the second grade.
Yep.
And flash forward, I'm sitting next to Dick Van Dyke in the makeup trailer playing Name That Tune. I would pull up a movie theme and play it for him and see if he could guess what it was, To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever, whatever movie. And so part of me is playing this game with Dick Van Dyke, and part of me is going, I'm sitting next to Bert the Chimney Sweep, and we're playing Name That Tune. How did this happen? How did I get here?
I love that.
I mean, that's what, you go through years and years and years of struggle, and that one moment makes it all worth it.
And when
right?
it's something that connects to something from your childhood,
Yes.
you never lose that sense of awe. It's like, no. This isn't movies.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
larger than life.
It's larger than life. But I'll tell you, the first sitcom I did was called Room for Two with Linda Lavin. And Linda did the TV version of Alice.
Mm-hmm.
There was a movie called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And then they did a comedy version called Alice. And she played my mom. And it was a show starring her. And it only lasted like 24 episodes. But she is such a consummate professional and such a beautifully trained theater actress, and her comic timing is beyond compare. And not only did I learn a lot from her as an actress, and I've tried to see everything she's ever appeared in, but she showed me how to be on a show and how to be the lead on a show. And she took me under her wing. And she's still my friend. She lives near us in LA when we're back in LA. We had, I think we had lunch with her and her husband a while ago, right when Unexpected was coming out. And she was such an encouragement. We're like, we don't know if it's going to go or do anything. She said, you made a movie.
Yeah.
She goes, everybody talks about their movie idea. Nobody ever makes them. You made the movie. That's all you have to worry about. That is success. You made the movie.
Exactly.
But she also says things like, she's in her 80s now, I believe. And she'll say things like, I can't believe they've only given me 5 lines on this episode. And I'm like, it never ends.
It never ends.
It never ends. They're never going to be respectful. They're never going. And but it's sort of heartwarming that we're all in the same boat. It's the great leveler for actors. Once you just scratch the surface, you realize we're all insecure. We're all wondering if we're ever going to work again. And it's kind of a club. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a club that we're all in the trenches all the time together, and it's kind of cool.
The imposter syndrome never goes away. It's like if people only knew that I didn't really know what I'm doing, they would never hire me ever again.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Well, and to end on that, like, what piece of advice would you give to young actors?
Do not put off your personal life to pursue your career. Like, don't put off getting married and having children, because I found that only strengthens your reserve.
I totally agree with that.
And it also, as we said, it creates life experiences for you that you can bring to your work. But also it adds a stability, and then it adds a focus. If you only have so much time because you have kids and a wife or a husband or spouse, then you will get your work done. You will be laser-like focused on being the best you can be, being super professional, working really hard, and you have to do it in a certain amount of time because you have to spend time. There's an amount of time you have to spend with your family. So it only adds to your life. So I think it's as important to create a life for yourself while you're trying to create a career.
For me, you were a big validating voice in our journey. You were the first actor of pedigree that was willing to put your name behind what we were doing. You took the risk, because we didn't have anything in our body of work that said we would be able to accomplish anything that we had promised.
Right.
And you were the first one to sign on and say, okay, I'll work with these guys. And then you pushed us for about 6 months of make it funnier, make it funnier, make it funnier. And that really was exactly what we needed to kind of to drive for. And then when you put your name behind us, then the Sean Astons and Sarah Drews of the world jumped on board. But I think, for us, that was a big part of our career. So I have a very dear place in my heart.
Oh, thank you.
For you. And I can't wait to get back on set.
Yeah, we need to do something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So get Dave working. We're gonna get him directing, and we're gonna all make something.
Yeah, we're all gonna do something
in Fiji.
Yeah, in Fiji. Excellent.
Patricia Heaton is one of the greats, and I think the thing that I like about Patty is for somebody that's got 3 Emmys and has really, absolutely, been continually on the cutting edge of what she does. There's this idea of not being satisfied to kind of sit down and be done with it. She's always looking for moments of what stories do I have to tell now? And she's stood for what matters, even when it hasn't been popular, and has kind of stood the test of time. So I think there's a lot to be said on that, I think for young filmmakers or actors, there's this idea, if I could make it, it would validate me and I would be done. And you get to that point and the validation doesn't last. That's not what keeps us going. What lasts is the passion for the stories. So that's our show for today, guys. The Storytellers is a show that we do for you guys, the fans. It's something we want to be able to communicate to you guys and to be able to let you guys behind the curtain of the things that we do here at Kingdom with our friends and with other storytellers that we admire and their stories that have inspired us.
The Storytellers is a Kingdom Story Company production. It is produced by Nick Carey with production assistance from Ben and Justin Bailey. Our executive producers are Kevin Downs and Brandon Gregory. Social media for the show is run by the team at Troops and Allies, and our music is Twisted Rooster by Tommy Profit. Special thanks to Jaron Weatherly, Evan Johnston, and our entire team at Kingdom Story Company. We have so many exciting guests coming up this season. To ensure you don't miss any of them, subscribe to The Storytellers for free on YouTube at Kingdom Story Company or wherever you listen to podcasts. For exclusive first looks at our upcoming films, behind-the-scenes content, and invitations to advanced screenings, join the conversation as a Kingdom Insider at kingdomstorycompany.com and follow us at Kingdom Story Company across all platforms. As always, thanks for joining Andrew Erwin and his friends on The Storytellers.